For over half a century, humans have endeavored to make business a force for good. But is the movement working? Or is it time to explore a new path forward? Welcome to Less Talk, More Action. We are your hosts, Joel Caesar and Owen Barrett, experts in clean energy, net zero real estate, decarbonization, and entrepreneurship. In each episode, we ask provocative questions and share stories from the front lines of sustainability with leaders in science, tech, and business taking real action to design a cleaner, better future. Thanks for joining the conversation. Now, let's get to work. Welcome to the Less Talk, More Action podcast. My name is Joel Caesar, the world's undisputed voice of building decarbonization. Joining me as always is Owen Barrett, the self-proclaimed most knowledgeable multifamily solar expert in the world. Today's guest, Anthony Guerrero, Executive Director at Mindful MATERIALS and founder of Sustainaprise, where he helps organizations accelerate their journey towards sustainable and regenerative business practices. And as we learned on the show, much more. Very cool guy. I've known him a long time. He's a legend in the green building field. What'd you think?
I liked it. The Mindful MATERIALS thing is a little outside my comfort zone, so I'll let you guys kind of nerd out on that. But what he's trying to do with office to multifamily conversions, I've been fascinated about that for years. So it's fun to talk to somebody that's kind of in the weeds about that.
Yeah, and you think my idea of building more housing with no windows is gonna
Well, remember when we were at UC Santa Barbara? I think Charlie Munger tried to build a dorm with no windows, and people went crazy.
It's a famous Santa Barbara story. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm with you, man. I think about what I would have prioritized as a 22-year-old. It's not windows. It's price all day long.
It's crazy to even especially to someone like Anthony, you could tell he was like, his brain couldn't compute blown that I was even asking the question. Wait, you're going to have a place, people are going to live in a place with no windows? It sounds crazy, but it's like, it's also what we need to think more about.
But I mean, when you think
what
about
does the user want?
Who's driving the decisions in the green building industry and the building code industry? It's 50, 60-year-old well-off white people. It's not like your gritty 20-year-old that just graduated college or has their first job that just wants a place to live. I don't know. Maybe we got to sort of get in line with the demographics of the people that are renting or buying these places, because I don't think windows is high on the priority list.
Well, and it's a little bit of a crazy example, but it is like real to exactly what we talk a lot about with
much. Yeah.
When you get to the conversation of regulation, it's just like, well, the bureaucrats and the academics who sit in their ivory towers and think about what's best for the world are actually just making everything more expensive and worse for the people who actually build stuff. And it's like that mindset of what you as an entrepreneur have to do. You have to go ask your customer what they want. As we do at Cambio. We go we have ideas of what we think is good, but ultimately we respond to our customers. Whereas the government or NGOs that create these policies or frameworks, they sit around and think, well, what is good for the world? And it's like, well, that's not how shit happens.
Talk to people. Yeah, exactly. No, yeah. It comes up, man. So many themes across all these different guests and all these different podcasts, like the same, 3 to 5 themes keep popping up.
Well, we already, maybe the bit here can be pretty quick then, because we already sort of jumped into pretty much what I was going to say. Like our bit here, this is the first podcast of 2026. I just wanted to ask you, simple question. What are you trying to get out of the show? So we've been doing this since, I don't know, I think we launched in April or May, and we've had lots of great guests, and it's been an awesome experience for so many reasons. But, we took a break for the holidays and we're resetting, and we got a lot of new guests coming, and I'm thinking a lot about what I'd like to focus on with this podcast. You and I hopefully are getting better at it, and we're learning about the process and the type of guests we want and how we want to ask the questions. But I'll stop there. What are you trying to get out of it in the future here?
I mean, I think some of my most favorite episodes have been the ones where I don't want to insult other guests, but I respect or look up to the guests the most. Jigger, we've interviewed 2 times. That one's always incredible. I think I want to try. We are the fastest growing climate tech podcast on the internet.
Yep. It's a fact.
I have the fastest growing solar company in the US. Both of these claims are validated.
Yep.
I think we need to use our platform to get some big shots on here and learn from them. I mean, we learn a ton from our guests all the time, but I want to get some industry leaders, company leaders people that are sort of on top of, or more in the know of like what's changing within ESG, given all this data and compute and AI, and hear from them and learn from them, because those are some of my most favorite episodes.
Yeah, it's good stuff. I'll say something similar. I'd like to focus more. I think I've said this to you and maybe others in previous episodes. I'd like to orient this show more towards like how I built this for
Yeah.
climate tech or sustainability. So you know
Yeah.
the show How I Built This, right? Where they talk
Yeah,
about
yeah.
founders
Love
and
it.
their journey. And I'm in now. I was employee. I've been at Cambio now 10 months. I was employee 22, and we're growing like crazy, and it's just awesome. But it's really just so dynamic, and it's just like I have so much respect for startup founders when I watch R2 founders and how they're operating and evolving and shifting in real time to survive and grow and compete. And these are the best stories, the ones like you're doing right
Yeah.
now, like front
Yeah.
lines, making decisions every day that are changing the course of your business and the people you employ and the suppliers that you support. It's like, yeah, I think there's just awesome stuff to be found in how I built this for sustainability, and not just new founders, but bringing back some of the ones we've talked to a year ago and say, what's changed? What's new?
Yeah.
And that could
Yeah.
be, that could feed in exactly what you said, like learning front lines. What are they seeing? What's real? So it's like startup founders I want to lean into and their stories and their journeys, and then really just more educational. Like I think you and I said the same thing there, like providing value to our audience. If you're in this space or you want to be in this space or you're trying to be an expert in this space, you can come to the show and learn something, because we are talking to people that are on the front lines and not in this theoretical.
Dude, I think it's a great idea. And you know what? Because I used to listen to How I Built This a lot, and it's awesome because it's giant brands that you've heard of. But I think it's almost more useful or helpful to people that are curious about starting a company to listen to earlier stage founders.
Yeah.
Like, what if it was I mean, I like your idea, just like How I Built This for sort of Series B and under, like clean tech companies. Or I don't know somewhere you draw the line, but I think it's got to be early enough that the founders remember like the gritty stories that a lot of times get glossed over on How I Built This because it happened 20 years ago.
Yeah, and I think the world is changing in terms of transparency, and what they call building in public is more in demand than ever. Like there might have been a world in the past where, man, you don't want to talk about some of the challenges you're facing in Series A and Series B. Like those founders sometimes don't want to disclose how difficult it is or how challenging their world is, because they're trying to project the strength to the marketplace.
Yeah.
But I think that's changed. Now people appreciate vulnerability and transparency and honesty.
Yeah.
And those stories actually might help their brand in a way.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's a good idea. I think we should double down on it.
Very cool. Well, we will double down on all things Let's Talk More Action. And that is a great segue into our conversation with Anthony Guerrero. Joining us today is Anthony Guerrero, Executive Director at Mindful Materials and founder of Sustainaprise, where he helps organizations accelerate their journey towards sustainable and regenerative business practices. Anthony is a recognized leader in corporate sustainability with over 2 decades of experience advancing environmental and social impact strategies across industries. From guiding large-scale organizational transformations to building collaborative industry platforms, he's played a pivotal role in driving measurable progress toward a more sustainable built environment. So, Anthony, welcome to the Let's Talk More Action podcast.
Yeah, I love it. I love the title. How's it been feeling getting people to do more action? Like, is it working?
No.
No.
You know, it's a great question. It's actually we have a script we gotta go by here, so you're really messing with my vibe. But since we're on it, I actually think about this a lot. Like, is the green building? And I know, Anthony, you're like me. You've been in this world for a long time and worn different hats, but like always tried to be part of the conversation of like, what is green building? What are we doing as a movement? The philosophy behind it. It's like we on the show tend to be critical of not enough action being taken, too much emphasis and time put on reporting, and a lot of BS that's involved in the climate and net zero movements. But I often wonder myself, who is tracking, like, are we making progress? Like, there's lots of anecdotes, you know, there's more lead buildings than ever and the movement's gone a long way, but it's like, is the movement working? So let's actually go back to that question. I'm going to take a note of it, and let me get back on script here and ask you a question we ask every guest when we start, which is, Anthony, how are you taking action to make the world a better place?
How am I taking action? Um, Let me regather my thoughts. You were saying I've been in this movement for 2 decades. I was going to correct you. I think it's 3 decades, but then that just means I'm super old now. So anyways, um, how have I been taking action? Well, Mindful Materials, that we've launched a common materials framework, which is I'm not sure if you've heard about it, but it's a protocol, a framework that manufacturers and specifiers can agree on in terms of what they're asking for from a manufacturer in terms of the material selection, so that they can be very specific and understand what's inside the products that they're ordering, right? And in theory, we're ensuring that we're enabling more sustainable products across the industry in the built environment. So I think that's one way, and I'm fortunate to be kind of at the center of pushing that forward to scale. Then the other thing is this idea at Sustainaprise that we can make vacant commercial office buildings, we can convert them to residential, which isn't a new concept. A lot of people are working on that. And it's a challenging problem to convert a commercial building, with all the mechanicals and deep floor plate and everything, into a residential space that needs natural light, you have many different units and stuff. So it's a challenging conversion to do. People are doing it. But what I'm trying to propose is that there's also a way to facilitate this need for the younger demographics, younger folks, to own a physical piece of property. I don't know if you've heard the latest in the news, but the average age for home ownership now is 40, as opposed to, several years ago when it was 25. So, housing's becoming unattainable. And so one of the ways to to make that more attainable is to lower the cost per unit. And that is by doing something like co-living spaces, where you are making smaller units and you are sharing amenities. And the interesting thing is when you look at commercial office buildings, a lot of them are easier to convert to a co-living space rather than a fully, what you traditionally look at in terms of residential condominiums and stuff. And that's something I'm passionate about, to figure out ways to reduce the cost of purchasing a home for our, younger generations. And there's obviously a huge environmental, sustainability impact to doing that. And so that's another way I'm trying to make a difference.
Joel, I've always been fascinated by the office to multifamily conversion. Can we go down this rabbit hole for a bit, or do you have a different direction?
Oh, sorry. We got it down script.
Anthony's on board. I'm on board. You're outvoted.
Well, I was just say, Anthony, we'll go back to Mindful Materials. It's not Owen's wheelhouse. You can see where he goes right to his multifamily space because he's very selfish. But we'll go back to what you're trying to promote here with the company you're at in a bit. But yeah, go ahead, Owen.
Well, so, I see these headlines like a lot of people do, where these downtown high rises are trading at like a 95% discount relative to where they sold in, 2018 to 2020, probably.
The commercial spaces, right?
The commercial space. Yeah. What is it that, I think I know, but I just want to ask the question so that everybody knows. What is it about these conversions that is so challenging? Because with these high-rise offices trading at these crazy discounts, and to your point about housing being unattainable, it seems like such an obvious solution, but as with all things, it must be more complicated once you kind of get into the weeds.
Yeah. But I think the main part that you're saying that we can't lose sight of, we have a housing crisis on one end and we have vacant spaces on the other end. It has to work. It's got to pencil out. And so, that's when agency, government, need to be able to cooperate with the private sector to ensure that we solve this problem, because it needs to be solved. You can't have vacant spaces and a housing crisis at the same time. It just doesn't make sense.
But is it
But yeah,
is it the floor plan
yeah.
itself that makes it so
Yeah,
challenging to do the
I was going
conversion?
to say technically though, it is a challenge. So there's several things going on. One is um, just as you said, you have a deep floor plate because when you're thinking of a commercial office space, you're loading in as many people as possible, but they're not sleeping there, they're not eating there, they're not taking showers there. So, and they don't need private spaces. You have your private office, but you don't need private living spaces. So you don't have to worry about access to natural light for everybody and things like that. When you convert that space, a deep floor plate, into residential spaces, you have to think about things like, how are you going to make sure each unit has access to outdoor views for the living, for their, the bedrooms and lounge spaces, things like that. That's what's being called by your building requirements, right? Building regulations. So that's one thing. Then simply the mechanicals are just, they're designed for maximum efficiency for a lot of people on the same floor, not for single family use or things like that, right? So the mechanical systems would need to be upgraded in order to support more living spaces. Think about plumbing, right? If you have a shower
Yeah.
for every unit, that's different than having a men and women's restroom for the entire floor.
Let me ask
But
a
to your
stupid
point,
question.
all of this is why it points towards co-living or
Yeah.
cohabitating, whatever the term is, because it's easier to make these floor plans work for that design.
Yeah, because I don't want anybody to think that I'm advocating for like shared. I'm not saying dorm spaces where you are sharing showers and things like that, but you can share common living spaces, large lounge spaces, large kind of dining room spaces. Maybe have a shared place for guests, that can be used, and you can put things that can be communal spaces in the core of a deep floor plate, and so that is more efficient than actually trying to do full living individual living spaces like condominiums or traditional space. The one other thing I would say, the other technical challenge is that when you are in commercial real estate, you have rentable square feet, but when you move to residential space, you use gross square feet. So there's a conversion loss factor just in square feet alone, in terms of you were charging $90 per square foot for commercial office space, but then the amount of space that you can charge is now less, and you're charging less for a private individual space per square foot. So there's a loss factor there that is really challenging. And so you need to do all that conversion. You have to buy that space, do all the conversion, and then ask a rate that people are willing to pay. And sometimes that's not penciling out based on market factors.
Well, let me ask my stupid question.
Yeah.
The not having access to the outdoors, a view to the outdoors, I'm like seems horrible to think about living in a unit that doesn't have a view to the outside. But we all know there's modified units across New York City, especially. I've seen a bunch where like there's a whole underground market of people who create fake partitions to have units inside a building that have no windows, and New York City residents are happy to have them. So it's like, is it law that requires us to have the window, or is it just like trying to assume that no one's going to rent a place that doesn't have a window? Right? And is it like universal across the country? Like, is there any place in America where you actually are allowed to have a residential unit that doesn't have a window?
That is an interesting question. I know for New York, it's law to you're required to have access to outside views for your living spaces. Bedrooms and I think the living room space. That's my recollection. But Joe, I imagine having a space where you didn't have access to outside views. That's a significant diminishment of
it wouldn't be
living.
great, but I don't know. I'm sure like people would pay for it. People would live in
The
New
other
York
thing
City
too
in
is
a
if
unit
we're
that doesn't
talking
have a
about
window.
like starter properties, and you think about the lifestyle of a 20 to 24-year-old, they're not spending
Yeah.
that much time at home. Do they care if they have windows? I mean, to Joel's point, it's like, it seems like all this added cost and complexity is driven by laws. Like we just went through building a house where we needed to have egress windows on the second floor, which was like 40 feet up. What does that accomplish? Well, there's a fire and my daughter's got to jump 40 feet out the window and land on concrete. Like, great, she's out. She's not alive. So it's like, what are we doing with these laws?
You guys really are less talk, more action.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's why we like let's ask the tough questions. Let's move on from this.
Okay, so one, I mean, I'm sure there's some tools that your daughter can buy. You know that you can. There's like this thing you can throw out that's like more.
No, I know,
effective
but
than
take that to like the
fire
high
escape.
rise in New York City. Do you need egress on the 30th floor? No, you don't. So let's just build units without windows.
Well, I beg to differ on that. I think you really need to give space to the outside views. I mean, think about what we're saying about a living space. Imagine if it's all artificial light. If you are, if you only have artificial light, you're only getting mechanical indoor air quality. There's all these things that will adversely impact your health, your circadian rhythm, what you're breathing inside of your lungs, and just the mental wellness that a house is supposed to provide.
Totally get it, but I guess it's like this larger conversation. And again, we're going down a rabbit hole here. We got to get back to
right.
But it's like so much of regulation in our cities has come to a point where it's all well intentioned, and you look at each law, it's like, yeah, of course, like it's crazy to think you're gonna have a person living in a place with no windows. But it's like, if you ask the person who could have a home in New York City or couldn't, would you do it if you could have no windows? I'm sure a lot of people would say, yeah, I'll take that. I'll take the house with no windows. But some bureaucrats sitting like, we can't allow units with no windows. So it's Anthony, I'm not debating what you and I come from the same world of living buildings where access to the outdoors. We all know the benefits and the needs of having it, but like, we also have to acknowledge the realities of overregulation and bad or well-intentioned things that have gone too far and make things too expensive to build anything, which is what you're trying to work on, which is converting very complex office towers into housing.
I think that's fair. One, I'm gonna put in a complaint about you to Living Future, and maybe they're gonna take away your hero award.
I'm a Living Future hero. They can't. Yeah, I'm allowed to have an opinion.
You have to get that out of your bio, Joel.
Look, I think we don't need to get that drastic. One, the city of Yes, you've heard of that, that initiative in New York City where they are methodically trying to reduce the amount of building regulations that are hurdles to doing this. I have not heard of that.
Is that
levers to pull?
Is that the new administration saying that? Or like, where did that come from?
I think Mamdani has embraced the idea of the city of Yes, that initiative. It started before him, but
City of Yes, I like that.
Yeah, sounds good. Let's see it. We'll be checking on you, Mr.
Gosh,
Mamdani.
now I'm worried that I got the nomenclature wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's City of Yes.
I like it. Stick with it. No one's gonna fact check you.
Yeah.
Anthony Guerrero, City of Yes, quoted. All right. Well, okay, but you make your last point, and then we'll keep going.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, but like to your point, maybe restrooms, shower spaces, kitchen areas don't necessarily need access to outside views or access to that. You can solve a lot of those problems with mechanicals, but the living space where you're going to be in your living room or in your bedroom, I think there needs to be some type of access. But I know exactly what you mean. I remember when I moved here in '98, I was just a young kid or something, right? I was in this like 2 blocks long line to look at a place on Astor Street or Astor Place in Manhattan. Yeah. And when I got there, it was just the size of a restroom. And
you would have lived in a closet if they let you.
Yeah, it was and there was so many people vying for that space, and it was crazy. That is New York. So there's.
Well, let's fact check in real time here. City of Yes refers to a series of major zoning and planning initiatives in New York City, spearheaded by Major Eric Adams, designed to tackle housing shortages, support businesses, and improve urban life. Okay, so you're right. Right nomenclature, previous administration. All right. Do you want to go back to mindful materials now, or you want to keep going
Sure.
on what you're trying to do with your with conversion of office to residential?
I'll just say a couple more things about the conversions and the idea of co-living spaces. Um, the thing I'm trying to do, the thing that I think we need to do is like I have two 22-year-old boys. That right now the national average is saying you're not going to get your first property until you're 40. That's the national average right now. And I think that's a crime, right? That's a shame. And that means that there's real wealth being taken away from our younger generations because they can't access, they can't get a property to build wealth and participate in building wealth in America. And so I think we need to think about owning spaces differently. And so the co-living idea um, is something I've been thinking a lot about. And when I do focus groups about it and stuff, one of the things that is a happy solution that I didn't even think about that many young folks are excited about is that kind of in a co-living space, it helps to reduce the idea of isolation and loneliness, which I'm surprised that a lot of young folks have that concern. And I
Yeah.
think what you were just saying about young folks, when you get out, when you graduate from college or something, you get your first job, what are you doing? You're renting, you're sharing, you have roommates. And, like for your first 5 years, you're just throwing money out the window because you're renting. You're giving it to someone else to help build their equity. So if we can find ways to lower the cost of housing so that younger folks can participate, and they don't have to just throw away their money to rent, but to buy a property, I think that'd be a pretty amazing thing for our younger generations. But the interesting thing that I've been thinking a lot about is it might mean that, if you're doing co-living and you're owning a unit, but maybe there's a new kind of membership model that's emerging where you might be able to live in New York and also have an opportunity to move your membership to another building, in Miami or something like that. And so there's kind of like a scaling factor where you can have a more robust way of thinking about owning a property where it's more of a membership. So it's just something we've been thinking about.
Well, you mentioned policy too. I want to like this. I did a quick search of like what's the most good examples of conversion of office to residential in a major U.S. city, and one comes up
Yeah.
as 25 Water Street in New York City. Have you heard of this one?
Yeah.
It's 1.1 million square foot and
Well,
built in the 60s, deep floor plate. So definitely addressing the challenge you described. But they took advantage of this tax incentive 421G,
Gee, yeah.
which Owen, you'll love this. It allows a tax exemption, 12-year tax exemption from any increase in real estate taxes resulting from conversion work, and or approximately 80% of the real estate taxes paid on the property before the conversion are abated. So this is
Yeah.
a New York
that's
City
huge.
policy, trying to make this more doable, and I would expect that's something that you got your eye on, Anthony, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think the way things are, the way you make a conversion pencil out is you need the government to participate to, either eliminate or reduce taxes on the properties in that conversion.
Well,
Well, we
I
don't
mean,
want to.
especially if these high-rise offices are basically worth nothing, the taxable
Yeah.
basis is so low. It's like they may as well abate it to encourage developers to convert it to multifamily.
Yeah.
Seems like a
That's
good
why I'm
idea.
looking at vacant commercial office buildings because they're already in distress,
Yeah.
right? And they're trying to write them off. But
So you're wearing
the
so you're wearing lots of hats. Let's keep going here.
let's do it. Let's keep going.
You're a teacher at Columbia. You're an executive director at a very exciting organization, which we should talk about next. You're trying to convert office to residential. We love both Owen and I love bringing people on like you, like wearing lots of hats, chasing different opportunities. It's something him and I have always aligned on. But I guess let's talk about your probably what you call your day job, your primary responsibility
Yeah.
now at Mindful
The,
Materials. So tell us more about it.
the job
Yeah.
that gives me my most headaches are, the biggest challenge right now. I mean, no, I really like Mindful Materials, and it's a joy to work with Annie Bevan. She's the president. I'm the executive director, so it's a dual leadership setup. We have a community of about 13,000 folks that we communicate with, monthly. There's a membership group that's roughly 400 folks. And all we're focused on and what we're centered on is getting broad adoption of the common materials framework so that a specifier, an architect, when they specify a product and they ask for information from a manufacturer, it's expressed in one common ask, where it's this framework where we are asking about 5 impact areas and it's consistent. And so a manufacturer gets the same ask from different specifiers in the same way so that they can respond in one, common give in the same framework. And so it eliminates a lot of bureaucracy and enables manufacturers to understand or to respond and to engage with specifiers in a much quicker and more robust way because we're all understanding on how we're asking for those that information.
So let's bring this to
Yeah.
life for Owen's world. Owen is runs a company that installs solar on multifamily. I don't know if you guys touch base and you knew that about Owen. He does lots of things, but that's correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah,
Owen, that's the core business.
It's the main
So-
gig these days.
So let's say Owen's working on a living building challenge project, Anthony, and the owner of this building says, "Owen, I'd love you to put solar on my building, but I got to know where all the materials of that's making those panels are coming from. I got to make sure there's no red list components. I got to make sure I understand the carbon footprint of the supply chain they're coming from." So Owen says, "All right, well, I'm not used to that question. I got to go talk to my suppliers, right?" And I guess historically the challenge is Owen goes to that supplier and says, "Here's some framework that you've never heard of, supplier. I need a bunch of your data." And that's creating a lot of friction, and which is going to lead to cost and time and stuff that Owen can't really absorb. And so the goal of your organization is to make that ask simple and consistent across the entire materials industry. Is that a good way to frame this?
That's exactly right. And Joel, there's another dimension to what you just said. So that's hard for that supplier, right? From that question. And that supplier might answer that question, with values aligned and, they make a full concerted effort to respond to that question. Another specifier in another project who's asking the same supplier might ask the same question, but in slightly different ways. And then that supplier, again, has another effort to do to respond to that other specifier. Do you see what I mean? So if you're a supplier and you've got 10 requests that are asking kind of the same question but getting at it in different ways, that creates a lot of bureaucracy. And even if you wanted to, if your values aligned with in sustainability, you're spending a lot of overhead trying to answer those questions to all those specifiers. And so what we're doing is creating this framework that is consistent and adopted widely so that a specifier answers that question once and just sends it to all of the supplier answers that question once and sends it to all the specifiers in a consistent way. Do you see the efficiency of that?
Joel, that was an interesting example because we do get questions like that fairly often. And honestly, it's a giant pain in the ass because we don't care about it. And our suppliers don't have a clue what anybody's talking about. So, I mean, you guys are both spot on. Anthony, how do you, I mean, I don't know if you can answer this question, but I think that one of my biggest problems with our industry of sustainability is that it seems like people constantly try and outdo each other with rating systems. So you started with LEED, and then you have living building, and then you have all these other ones that I don't even know about. How can you make sure that if you're successful in making this this registry or whatever you're calling it, that's it? Because it's only easy to use and efficient if a second, third, fourth, fifth don't come out, in the next 3 years, and then you're kind of back to square one. How do you do that, or can you do that?
Yeah, the framework is harmonized with all of the different rating systems out there. So we have this global agreement with Living Future, with USGBC, IWI, WBI, HBDC. So they're all aligned in the common materials framework on in specific impact areas. So you could use the framework to understand where you are with all of those certifications. And a new one might come up. I don't think there's a lot of room for, another certification. I hope there's not one, but that would be brought to the CMF and it would be crosswalked into the different impact areas. And so it organizes that really confusing area where there's a certification for everything. What's interesting, like from an owner's perspective, when I was an owner, when I was looking at this from being like a chief real estate officer or chief sustainability officer, you can care about decarbonizing and you can narrowly look at decarbonizing your materials supply chain, but then you might not be concerned with that narrow kind of focus means you might not be thinking about indoor air quality or wellness or the HBDCs, the other categories, the other areas where you might, if you're thinking more holistically about sustainability, you'd care more about, or you would want to care about. And so this kind of from an owner's perspective, de-risks you from like just narrowly focusing on carbon, and then you don't worry about the social equity issue. The framework holistically gives you the 5 impact areas to kind of think of everything, and see where you are. Circularity, human health,
Carbon, a bit.
carbon, climate, equity.
Well, Anthony, so Mindful Materials, it's in my previous life, Google days, we came across each other a lot. So I've known about the organization. What's like what's the North Star right now? So you describe what you've been shooting for. You've got this crosswalk across the industries. You're sounds like the leader in the clubhouse of like what framework or registry, as Owen said it. So in your role here at Mindful Materials, what's the future? What do you focus on now? What's the biggest challenge you're trying to solve in the near future?
Yeah. So, our plan for the next 3 years is to drive membership to increase the tent, get broader and broader adoption across the industry, deeply driving the CMF into the built environment domestically, obviously in the United States, and also crosswalking the CMF to all of the players internationally, globally, making sure that if you're thinking about, think about the supply chain nowadays. If you're a building owner and you're supplying a product for your building, every product has a global supply chain. So we need to make sure that we've harmonized the CMF across the globally for the industry. And so those are the things we're focusing on, global adoption, broad adoption across the US, and growing our membership base so that
and who's important to be a member? Is it the manufacturers? Is it the specifiers? Maybe you're going to tell me everybody. Like, who's the more important to be the member?
Yeah, I mean, it's fair to say everybody. Everyone has a role to play, from the owner who's going to be driving kind of the values alignment, that wants to make a statement in terms of how they're building the architect that's going to be specifying the products, the correct products. You have the supplier who's going to obviously provide the products. And so there's this workflow from owner to supplier, specifier, architect, all the players in between, consultants. That workflow is in the entire industry there. And the optimal thing is to ensure that that's fully digitized, that workflow, so that you can automate it, and that it's more more synchronous across that entire across those stakeholders.
And just because this is not my world, the owners care about this because someone's telling them that they have to build a building to some standard, and that's sort of what causes this chain reaction? Or why do owners care?
That's a good question. From my perspective, when I've been an owner, and I've been an owner for environmental organizations, right? So we've had a values alignment kind of thing.
He was at NRDC. I don't know if you've seen
Yeah.
his background. He's been a
Yeah.
couple of stops,
NRDC
but
and Earth Justice.
yeah,
And
places
so,
that care deeply about these
Right.
issues. Yeah.
And so as an owner, it was a given. I needed to make sure that whatever we built out was the most sustainably responsible building out there. And so that's, the owner drives that. So they're going to require that in their RFP when they recruit the architect, the engineer, the consultants, that they all have the same common alignment.
The solar provider out there, like Owen,
Yeah.
maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you have developers, like Heinz or so, other kind of where that's part of their ethos, their culture. But, and then I would imagine also owners they have they're trying to serve a specific customer, who cares about the environment or cares about sustainability. So they want to ensure that their buildings are top quality.
So it all stems from the owner. That's so owners
From my
seem
perspective,
like,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, you might say an architect educates an owner and persuades an owner to do some work.
Or as
but
we
the
know,
best kind of
Owen-
projects, in my point of view, is driven by an owner who's,
Yeah.
got the values alignment there.
or maybe an investor telling the owner
Yes.
what to do.
Yeah,
as
yeah.
we know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Well, Anthony, we're coming close to time. Let's go back to the question that we almost addressed in the very beginning, but you threw me off my my process. So, as a long time green building practitioner, as you are, like myself, if I ask you the question, hey, I don't know how long you say the green building movement's been going on. Early 90s, sometimes people point to, like the Clinton White House did something, and that was like the birth of green building. So what is that, 30 something years ago?
I say the 80s. NRDC, their
Fact
building
checking
in New
me.
York was the prototype for the USGBC LEED rating standard.
There you go.
Yeah.
Look at that.
That was
Learned
built in the
learned
80s.
some green building history here on the show. Okay, so 80s, NRDC started it, 40 years.
84.
Is it working? Are we in a good place? Is the movement succeeding? Are buildings getting greener across the world? What's your grade right now for the green building movement?
I think buildings are. And also we have this a bigger discrepancy of quality buildings and shitty buildings, right? And I think that's gotten more, there's been a bigger divide, right? Like the buildings that are bad now are really bad. I don't know if that was the case back then. So we have like these top-notch, top quality buildings, and there's a flight to quality. Everybody's trying to get those buildings and get into those buildings. And then you have this kind of, these buildings that aren't taken care of. They're a sore to look at, and there's just a greater divide. That's what I see is there's emergence of some really great buildings, really well designed. There's a lot coming up. Everyone's talking about green buildings, and then there's some people that just really don't care, and then those buildings are there too.
So what is that, Owen? What do you think what did that sounded like? That answer on a grade was
That sounded like a
B
very
minus?
political answer that's maybe not getting to the
He doesn't want
truth.
to. Yeah, he doesn't want to. Yeah, he doesn't want to be the one on the record.
Yeah, I mean,
giving
I
a bad
would
grade
give-
to the green building movement.
I would give our industry an F, an easy F.
Come on.
I don't.
An
yeah,
F?
yeah, but no, it's not. It maybe I take back that it's our industry, but it's the larger building industry is the F. I don't think we have been effective at motivating change as fast as I thought or hoped we would when I got into this, almost 20 years ago, 16
Yeah.
years ago. The rate of change has been astonishingly slow.
I think though, if you get the question is the grade to the 40-year-old green building movement, I don't think you can give an F. There has been progress.
No. Yeah,
It
I
is-
take that
yeah,
back. Not the movement, but the movement's effect is an F. Like, what are we accomplishing?
Well, I mean,
That's what I would rate
this,
an F.
This question, like the way I asked you, Anthony, and it's like something I want to ask myself. I've been wanting to do more homework on this because Owen and I don't know how much you listen to the show. We're always bashing on GRESB, like one of these rating systems that
Yeah.
rates existing buildings as a framework that we know is well intentioned and does a lot of good, but as has come up a lot in the show, takes a lot of time and resources from the industry to, we think, that could otherwise be going towards action. But it's like, well, if we're just railing on the folks not taking action, or the barriers to action, or the overregulation, or lots of things we can point to, or GRESB, or whatever, the misalignment of capital markets to these outcomes, it's, well, I don't know, like, are we being fair? Like, maybe everything's progressing in a good way and we shouldn't be so pessimistic. But I don't know. There's also a responsibility of all of us to ask the question, is what we're doing working? And if not, maybe we should try something different.
Yeah, I'll say this. I think there's a lot of truth there. Here's what I think about a lot. I think about this a lot. There's two things I'm really highly worried about. One is this like hyper focus on decarbonizing buildings, and not thinking about the holistic view of a building, that it's somebody's refuge, it's somebody's safety, it's all these things. It's got to be affordable. It's got to be all these things for the people who live in that space.
And the materials,
and we can't just
the materials
talk about decarbonization, because you lose a lot of people when you do that. What's that? You lose a lot of people who just want safety, or they want refuge from. They have a very specific need for their living space, and to only talk about decarbonizing it is unfair. It's not, and it creates detachment. You lose a lot of people, and that's probably where a lot breaks down, is because we start talking, or the environmental movement talks about decarbonizing. Meanwhile, there's a lot of other things at play, and and the crazy thing is that if you talked about those things and you got those things right, decarbonizing would come right after that, because they're all synergistic.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I have one other thing.
100%. Yeah, go for it.
And I'll just give you one other thing. And the other thing is that we don't talk about avoided impacts, right? We are excited about a new building that's erected or constructed, and is using virgin materials they're extracting virgin materials to build this new building out there. And it is significantly better if we just renovate the spaces we already have and not demolish and build new. Like, that's probably the most holistically sustainable thing you can do, is to renovate existing spaces rather than create new spaces. The amount of resource extraction to create a new space compared to renovating an old space is significant. And we need to really think about that and grapple with that. Sorry, go ahead.
I think that
those were two things.
No, I mean, on the last point, I think that's institutional capital's fault. The brown to green movement it's a harder investment thesis than buying a new green building.
It's come up a lot. Yep, that
comes up all the time, and I don't know.
On this
a hard thing to overcome.
We've had lots of people, brown to green, need to do it, embody carbon, use the existing structures, all these same points that in the environmental movement we all agree on. No one's disputing them, but it's like, it's hard to make work.
This other thing I was going to say, Anthony, about your first point that I agree with 1,000%. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of or heard, what's his name, the NVIDIA CEO, Jensen, talk about how, he could sell his chips for $0, or I think what he says, he could sell his chips he could give away his chips for free, he could like triple the price. People would still buy them, because when you build a data center with his chips, the operational costs are so much lower due to efficiency that it doesn't really matter what he charges. And I hear him say that all the time, and I'm like, man, he's explaining this in such a unique manner that, Anthony, to your earlier point, I feel like if our industry could talk about the benefits or prioritize the benefits of green buildings and not the doom and gloom. Yeah. Like, hey, this is going to be a cheaper building to run, or safer, or healthier, or whatever the issue is. We don't do that very well. We tend to harp on the bad things, and it just turns a lot of people off. But it's such a good point, because I agree. Like, if you prioritize everything that you mentioned, I think the decarbonization would follow, because it has to.
Yeah. I 100% agree. Think about what you're saying, right? So if you come in saying we need LED lights to reduce our energy load, that's a little bit different than saying we need natural light for our space so that we can have a better circadian rhythm and be in touch with outside. Yeah. Or like, you need insulated walls so that you reduce your heat load. And we need insulated walls so that we have thermal comfort and people are less likely to get sick, right? Or, we need proper ventilation so that people don't get sick and they have better indoor air quality. It's not a energy efficiency thing. It's a health thing. And if we talk through those things, naturally our carbon footprint gets reduced because of all the strategies that we employ.
Yeah.
Well, Anthony, it's been a fascinating conversation, learning all about your journey, what you're working on now, the things you're thinking about, big problems you're trying to solve. So let's wrap up here. We end the show with the same question. We danced around this a little bit today, right? A little too much pessimism in the world, some negative news cycles, especially about the environment. We like to end the show on optimism. So, Anthony, what gives you hope for the future?
What gives me hope for the future? I think that there's a lot of determined people trying to do good, and I like the human engineering ingenuity aspect, and I see inspiration in a lot of people. That gives me hope. This gives me hope. The podcast.
Very cool. Well, Anthony, you give us hope too. We'll be out there rooting for you. Owen and I in the past have raised money to buy buildings. We still own a few buildings together. So when you're raising money to do some of these office to residential conversions, let us know. We'll use the wide range of this podcast to get the word out and get you some investors.
Absolutely.
Well, let's wrap up on that, Anthony. Before we get to wrapping up completely, anything to plug? Mindful Materials website, following you on social media. What's how do people follow along?
Yeah, I think going to Mindful Materials, learning mindfulmaterials.com, that website, you can learn a lot about the community. I hope if you have the opportunity to join as a member, and I'll leave it at that.
Very cool. Well, thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Owen. And thank you to our audience for joining. You can find Owen and I on LinkedIn, usually actively antagonizing the more talk, more complaining sustainability crowd. You can find this podcast and more great content at letstalkmoreaction.com. If you like the podcast, please subscribe, like, and share with your friends. And until next time, we encourage you to ask yourself, what are you doing to take action to make the world a better place?